Colossal, the startup reviving the woolly mammoth, just had its first de-extinction. It brought back the dire wolf.
This is a wild story. And to succeed in de-extinction, Colossal has turned to Hollywood.
Yetis, 2 years ago, we told you about the Jurassic Park startup.
Their business plan is the same plot as the movie that Steven Spielberg directed.
Yeah, but instead of velociraptors, they're starting with a more recently extinct animal, the mammoth, the woolly mammoth.
Colossal was worth $1.5 billion when we first covered it 2 years ago, but now it's worth $10 billion. And they just pulled off an act of God. They brought back the dire wolf.
That's right. Yeah, Jon Snow's pet from Game of Thrones, that dire wolf.
The dire wolf was extinct in the last ice age 13,000 years ago.
Jack, I believe that was the late Pleistocene era, and the dire wolf back then was 25% bigger than your standard North American gray wolf.
The dire wolf was believed to hunt horses, hunt bison, and possibly even mammoths. So this is a beast of an animal.
And because life finds a way, Colossal just birthed 3 of these new dire wolves back from extinction after 13,000 years.
We repeat, the dire wolf is back. The only one not happy about this news is Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah,
we saw a bunch of photos. These are big white wolf puppies. They're pure white. They look like the thing of a sci-fi movie.
I mean, they look like a polar bear wolf. Now, one of these new ones is named Khaleesi after, that's right, the Game of Thrones character.
And this company even got George R.R. Martin, the author of Game of Thrones, to pose holding one of these wolf pups.
We repeat, the author of Game of Thrones showed up at their biotech facility, tweeted winter has come, and posted a picture with a dire wolf now not extinct puppy.
And they were sleeping on an iron throne.
And now, in case you are curious to jump in T-Boy style, Colossal is keeping all 3 of these dire wolves on a secret 2,000-acre facility whose location is unknown.
TBD whether they've built a wall around it and put the Night's Watch to defend these wolves.
And in case you didn't know, this is a startup that's funded by the CIA, so yeah, they're pretty good at secrecy.
But we have a treat for you. Colossal released audio of the first dire wolf howl heard in the last 13,000 years. Here it is.
So Yetis, Jack and I were trying to analyze what the strategy here was for Colossal, and we realized this wasn't a minimum viable product. This was a magnificent viable product.
Colossal is proving traction with a wild example.
But here's the surprise detail. Bringing the dire wolf back from extinction was actually the result of 3 failures. This was actually their 3rd choice.
In 2022, plan A for this startup was to resurrect the woolly mammoth.
Yeah, they wanted to de-extinct the biggest land mammal in history.
So they put a mammoth embryo inside a surrogate elephant mother, but the egg wouldn't take.
So instead, Colossal pivoted to plan B, resurrect the dodo.
The dodo, a random, extinct, crazy-looking, flightless bird.
But the problem, Jack? The eggshell. They couldn't get the new dodo embryo into the hard-shelled surrogate ostrich egg.
3rd time's a charm. Plan C, they were going to resurrect the dire wolf.
Yeah, it's not as big as the elephant, Jack, and there's no hard shell like the old ostrich bird.
They found DNA for the dire wolf in a 75,000-year-old skull, and they edited 20 genes of today's modern gray wolf to include the DNA of the dire wolf.
And then they gestated that embryo inside a domesticated large dog. This feels like a bingo game.
But it worked.
It did work. And that's how they proved their concept, not with the most minimal version, but with the most magnificent version.
So what are they going to do now with these 3 animals they're brought back to life?
I know what you're thinking, Jack. Like, what's the business model here? Are they going to open Dodo World, open Mammoth Land? Are we getting a dire wolf lodge chain coming from these guys?
I think this is where the plan deviates from Jurassic Park's plot.
Colossal now says their business model is conservation, but one of their key investors said they don't even care how this company makes money.
As long as what they're doing is awesome.
So, paging Dr. Grant, what's the takeaway for our buddies over at Colossal?
Colossal's success is a lesson from Hollywood. They focus on blockbusters.
Yet he's interesting tension here. No business model, no plans to monetize, and yet Colossal has the widest and deepest range of investors we have ever seen.
They've received money from Peter Thiel, Paris Hilton, Tom Brady, the CIA, both Winklevi twins,
2 of them,
and Peter Jackson. the creator of the Lord of the Rings movies.
All that funding is why there were $10 billion today. Colossal isn't launching products, they're launching plots. Blockbuster-sized plots.
The lead investor in Colossal's latest fundraise is the Hollywood producer behind the movie Inception.
And Jack, what was his one condition to put millions into the company?
In exchange for my money, you need to bring back a blockbuster.
Now, Yetis, we know there are a lot of species going extinct, ones that are easier to de-extinct than a woolly mammoth or a direwolf.
But that wouldn't have satisfied the investors.
That's not how you raise $225 million in funding, Jack.
You don't become a $10 billion company by bringing back some extinct newt that no one's ever heard of.
Because Colossal, they started with the biggest mammal on Earth and a fictional character from Game of Thrones.
Colossal runs their biotech business like a Hollywood studio runs a movie business. They focus on the blockbusters.